Hey, so we're starting the Civil War unit, so as you can see, I'm dressed up as a Civil War soldier, and we're going to be taking a look this week at the causes of the Civil War. And then we're going to focus on the Civil War itself. So first of all, let's talk about the causes. The number one cause of the Civil War was the issue of slavery. It was about the South who was determined to use the slave issue to go to war. Even though they'll say it was about the states' rights, the reality is it was all about slavery. With the North, they had educated themselves on the whole slavery issue. Not everybody was in favor of abolishing slavery because if you remember, the factories were determined to make money on the hands of the slave through the picking of cotton that was transported to the North. So the North was also involved in the Civil War to some extent itself. So let's talk about some of the basic causes. One, Congress is a failure to address the issue of slavery and using various compromises. Then we have the rise of abolitionism. Remember, we talked about what an abolitionist is. Talked about people such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who publishes this book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. President Lincoln, who's elected and who's determined to keep the nation together. He doesn't say he's going to abolish slavery, though. He just says he's going to keep the nation together. So his election causes the South to secede. That's a key word, secede, which means to leave. Now we take a look at the Civil War itself. Who is involved? We have two sides, the North, which is called the Union, and the South, which is called the Confederacy. I am dressed as a Union soldier. The effects of the Civil War, we're going to be looking at what happened during the Civil War, how it was fought, and the various issues that are involved in the fighting, but let's talk about the effects right now. Let's talk about not so much the effects, but let's talk about when the war starts, what's going on. It's like a game, okay? There's strategy involved. When the war starts, the South is actually, if you were to bet, you'd say the South would win. They had the better military leaders. They were fighting on their own turf. So basically they're fighting at home in the southern states. And that's going to serve them well the first parts of the war. The advantage that the North has is they have lots of resources. Remember all the factories. Remember those maps we looked at, those various graphs. And there's population, there's resources, there's factories. All of those are going to come into play as the war drags on. The war is fought from 1861 to 1865. So once those are put into effect, at first the South looks like they're going to win the war. Then as the war drags on and on and on, the North gets the advantages because they have the population, they have the resources. The South runs out of resources. Now, the effects of the war, casualties. There's over 600, some people say today almost 620,000 people died. So that's a huge part of the American population. You have all these people who are injured. You have property damage. And as you're going to see in some various pictures that show the property damage. But at the same time, what was the outcome? The 13th Amendment is passed as soon as the war is over. Unfortunately, President Lincoln doesn't get to see this. And so slavery is abolished. And there's an effort to actually bring black people back as citizens. It's not going to work right away, though. Initially, it's going to look good, but it's not going to work right away. So as we take a look at the Civil War, you want to focus on some key words such as secession. You want to focus on other words such as abolitionism. You want to know the two sides, the North and the South, and what they were fighting for. And we want to take a look at the effects as well. So we're going to examine this week, and this whole unit is actually going to take a few weeks, but I want you to get fully involved in this. And when I say fully involved, I just really understand what a civil war does to a country. So think about the effects of the total war.